I have a special guest on the Way Back Country Jamboree today. Yes, I'd like to welcome to the Way Back Country Jamboree a man who I consider his father one of the greatest country singers of all time and a true pioneer of all time. His father has sold over 70 million records during his career, and the man who turned from rock and roll to one of the most respected ministers of country music and the official minister of the Grand Ole Opry. Please make welcome to the show today a true icon of country music royalty in his own right, Mr. Reverend Jimmie Rodgers Snow, the son of the man who has been everywhere, Hank Snow.
Well, thank you for that. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Dad had a great career.
He sure did, and he could sing anything.
He was probably a lot more talented than people gave him the credit for.
He sure was, yes.
'Cause I grew up with him and had a chance to see the abilities that he did have in many different ways. Dad only had a fifth-grade education. He was so ahead of his time. I don't know if you've ever had an opportunity to read a letter that he's written to anybody.
No, I haven't, but I have read his book.
I wish I could write letters like he did. He could let you have it in a very distinct way, and he could give you a lot of praise in another way. He typed as fast as anybody I'd ever seen on the old typewriters.
Oh, yes.
With just 2 fingers.
Uh-huh.
And was very good at it. I can't even type as fast as he could.
So the next question I should ask is, born the only son of Hank Snow, the singing ranger, and Minnie Snow, what was it like growing up in the Snow household?
Well, it was a busy time because Dad was gone in my very early years. He would travel quite a bit because he was the chief cook and bottle washer, and my mother and I, we'd stay with my grandmother, that was my mother's mother, and he would travel. Then during the summertime, when I was out of school, I would travel, with him because I pretty much grew up on the stage, so I understood that. And the other side of the coin would be that in those early years, my dad was he lacked a lot of confidence, was very driven. And he, like so many people, he got into drinking. And Dad drank pretty heavy in those very early years. And then over a period of time, when we moved to Nashville, he drank then. But then all of a sudden, when I made a choice to go into the ministry, which I was 22 years of age, Dad just stopped drinking.
Okay.
And smoking. He just quit both of them at the same time. And that really helped his career because then he could concentrate even more, as well as his music. So he was basically a 2 different person. You know what I'm saying? When he drank a little bit, he was very outgoing and full of confidence. So the drinking did a lot of that for him. Of course, at the same time, a person that will drink will eventually start catching up with you. And but he was smart enough to realize that as time went on.
Okay.
But my life was, during the summer times, we traveled a lot. We were never in one place very long, and moved all over the place. And all I knew pretty much was showbiz. And because he worked just about every night, telling you those times were tough. I never had any really close friends.
No. Okay.
We had a guy that different people that worked with us that Dad would put on the show. He'd have a female singer once in a while that would travel with us for a summer.
Yes.
Different ones.
Oh, yes.
We're talking about the
early days.
Canada before we actually.
Okay.
And he wasn't a big star except in Canada.
Yes. Okay.
And
so this is back in RCA day.
Yes.
Yes.
And 1950 is when we moved to Nashville.
Okay. Okay.
Of course, he had his career that hit big time in 1950. And from then on, it's all history.
Exactly, yes. I should say that you followed in your father's footsteps during the early days of country music and rock and roll.
Right, that's because I grew up in it.
Yeah.
And we started out primarily to kind of give you a chronological effect of the situation. Dad started out just wherever he could, doing parties, doing joints, doing any place that he could sing.
Yes, yeah.
But he figured out that during the movie theaters in the maritime provinces, especially, that he contracted with a chain of theaters because, as you know, whenever they'd run a movie in a theater, they were like three-reelers and possibly occasionally four-reelers.
Okay.
Which means big reels of the film. And once the first reel was finished, they would have to take it off of machine, the projector, and then they would have to thread a new one. And it would usually take them about 15 minutes to go from reel 1 to reel 2. So Dad contracted with these theaters to sing and perform to the people because they didn't have nothing to do for 15 minutes between reel 1 and reel 2 and between reel 2 and reel 3. So he contracted with it, and that meant that he would do 2 15-minute stints on the stage there. This became real viable because it kept him going every night somewhere in some theaters. Of course, as a kid, I'd get to sit there and watch the movies. And back in that day and time, the movies were primarily clean, and we're talking 40s.
Exactly.
Yeah, we're talking 40s. There may have been some violence, but you didn't even see them jumping out of their clothes, and there was more intimation.
And blood and everything else, exactly.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And I saw a great deal of film. And I would get the opportunity, too, to be on the stage with him and sing as a 3-year-old and on up in my, 5 years of age.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how he started, and that's how I started with him. So then as time went on, Dad saved his money. He was very frugal with his money.
Yes.
And he would invest his money in PA systems and then, of course, getting a truck that he could use as a stage and that would carry various things. And then eventually we wound up moving to Wheeling, West Virginia for a year.
Okay.
Where he became part of the Wheeling, West Virginia Jamboree, WWVA.
Yes.
Right, Wheeling, West Virginia.
Mm-hmm.
And he became part of that. And he met a guy there that was a full-blooded Indian, which he became very close to, that taught him how to trick ride.
Okay.
And when he learned how to trick ride, he was a very good trick rider and spinning the rope like cowboys did then.
Yes.
You remember how they used to jump in and out of those ropes?
Exactly, like Hawkshaw Hawkins and all that.
Yeah, well, Dad learned how to do that.
Uh-huh.
And which, incidentally, that's where we met Hawkshaw Hawkins, because he was also associated with Wheeling.
Uh-huh.
And he lived right across into the Pennsylvania and had some land over there, and he lived over there, and we actually wound up living in a trailer there on his property. That's how we met him, and we're talking 45, 46, right around there.
Uh-huh.
And so anyway, this guy, his name was Big Slim, the Lone Cowboy, and his wife was a trick rider, Hazel.
Okay.
And he helped my dad buy a trained pinto horse called Shawnee.
Shawnee, yes, exactly. Yeah.
And Dad brought Shawnee to Wheeling, and we used him. Dad could do a full 2-hour show with just that horse if he wanted to.
Wow.
So this was like a big show, and this was the reason why that he wound up buying the semi.
Okay.
He could take the horse in. He could carry a grandstand. He had invested quite a bit of money in this, and he actually talked Big Slim and Hazel into coming to Maritimes and across Canada and doing tours with him for one summer. They would trick ride, and of course I learned how to spin the rope, and I would do some tricks with Dad when it came to the horse and everything. You grow up with it, and an only child, you learn to do a lot of those things.
Exactly.
Then in 1947, I think it could have been earlier 48, but 47, I believe, was the year that Dad decided to get this juggler by the name of Billy King. And Billy King traveled with us for a full year, maybe even 2 years. Extraordinary juggler. He was single, wasn't married, and he became like my best friend. And he taught, and I was his assistant. And we did this concert and this show there in British Columbia and all across Canada. We played there in Ontario quite a bit too, as well.
Okay.
And probably Kingston.
Probably the Memorial Center. Yes.
Probably so.
Yeah,
I can't remember my dates from my mind, but we did a lot of shows, and Billy became like my friend because I didn't have a chance to really gain a lot of friends in those days. And then the grandstand actually crashed on us one time.
Oh, wow.
And hurt some people, and we were afraid of being sued.
Yes.
So Dad decided that's enough, and he sold the grandstand, sold the semi, sold everything, kept the horse, and that's when he decided to go to California, which would have been the earlier part of 1948, I believe, to become one of those cowboys on the screen, in movies that sings and plays the guitar, and so he went there to do that, and actually wound up losing every cent that he had, and that took him to Dallas, Texas.
Okay.
And he started working a couple of nightclubs in Dallas, Texas. One of them was called the Silver Spur, and the other was called the Roundup Club. It was more country than the Silver Spur, although they both hired my dad. And they basically hired Dad to, where he would go back and forth from one to the other because of the horse. They liked what the horse could do.
Yes.
And so I would go in there. That's when he sent for Mother and I. We were in Nova Scotia with my grandmother while he was in Hollywood.
Okay.
And so he wound up losing his money there. And so with what he had left, he went to Dallas. He had a record doing pretty good. And so the nightclubs were kind of a nice thing for him. He made some money. One of them was owned by the infamous Jack Ruby that killed Oswald.
Oh, yes.
Which I had met him.
Okay.
And so you can imagine the surprise I had when I saw that on the news.
Yes.
And so while we were there, my dad's hero was Jimmie Rodgers.
Yes.
That's who I was named after.
Of course, yes.
And although Dad had never met him, that was his hero. And he just thought that Jimmie Rodgers was it. Learn to play the guitar, learn to yodel, learn to sing, do all of those things.
And he could imitate him quite well in the early days.
Yeah, he could imitate him.
Yeah.
He really could. Of course, in time, he changed to his own style.
Yes.
Which had shadings of Jimmie Rodgers by it.
Yes, it did.
There was another man by the name of Ernest Tubb.
Of course, yeah.
Dad would correspond with. Ernest Tubb was also a hero. Jimmie Rodgers was his hero, and he loved Jimmie Rodgers, so they corresponded. And so while Dad was in Dallas at the Sportatorium that he'd go hang out at quite often, another lesser Grand Ole Opry, still going on in Dallas, by the way.
Okay.
Lo and behold, Ernest Tubb was booked in there. And so Dad immediately went there, went backstage and spent time, met Ernest Tubb and had conversation with him. And Ernest said, Hank, I believe I can get you on the Grand Ole Opry in Nashville for a tryout. So we moved in December of 1949 to Nashville, and then Dad became a member of the Grand Ole Opry in January, and later on in that year is when I'm Moving On came out, which changed everything. Well, that kind of put me on the shelf. No more movie theaters, no more traveling in shows with Dad anymore, so I became a schoolboy, 13 years old when I moved to Nashville, so I'm 13, 14, and at the age of 15, I start recording. Dad had me do a duet with him on what was called an EP.
Yes, okay.
It's a 45 record, if you know what a 45
yes,
is like.
Yes, of course, yeah.
45s had just come into power, and so this 45 had two songs on each side.
Mm-hmm.
And so I recorded two songs with Dad, a tribute to Jimmie Rodgers.
Yes, yes.
One of them was called When Jimmie Rodgers Said Goodbye, and the other one was called Treasure Untold. I sang the duet with Dad, and then I did Treasures Untold myself.
Yes, okay.
And this became my introduction to RCA. And at the age of 16, I wind up, I cut my first deal with Dad, and then at 16, I recorded my first single. Of course, Dad was like the #1 country music singer in the world at that time. So
he was, yes.
That put a lot of political expediency to allow his son to record on RCA, which I was, so green. And, my early recordings, they did okay, good enough to keep me going.
Yes, yes.
But nothing big.
No.
I actually didn't start doing big until around 1957.
Yes.
And but from 50, I think it was 1950, 51 or 2, right in around there, that I recorded my first. And but they sold good enough to keep me going because of whose son I was, and that kept me recording. And I probably recorded 25 singles. But just for your listeners' sake, a lot of people are not aware of this, because a lot of times when they buy books like his book, they don't look at the back pages. And there is a discography about Dad's recordings, that he was on RCA from 1933 to 87. Probably holds a record nobody else will ever set. Nobody else has ever recorded on a major label that many years.
For that many years, exactly.
Like my dad did, right?
Yeah.
And during that time, he recorded 833 singles, 208 albums, got 23 gold records, and sold 70 million in his career.
Yeah.
Which is amazing. Quite an achievement.
Yes.
Yeah.
It sure is.
And so anyway, getting back to my recordings, I went back to traveling, and that during those years, for 7 years, I got to work with all the big stars of the day, and had to sang to those big crowds, and made money and did very well, but it wasn't what I felt that I wanted to do.
So how did you come to the ministry?
Well, I had never been a church goer.
Okay, yes.
Which is really strange. And neither were the people on both sides of the family. My grandmother, grandfather, and some of my mother's brothers. My mother had 8 brothers and a sister.
Okay.
They were Church of England in background, which, being a Canadian and your listeners there,
it's Anglican.
Really identify with that. In the U.S., that's the Episcopal Church, I believe.
Yes.
Equivalent.
Exactly.
And they went some back in the days, but when I came on the scene, they weren't ardent churchgoers, so I never knew anything really about church, except that they were churches of different street corners and things like that. So I had no understanding of that. And on my dad's side, my mother played the organ a little bit in a church when she was younger, where Dad got his music desire. But she kind of dropped out of that. She went through a divorce. She remarried a fisherman, so she got away from that. So times that I would visit her in Nova Scotia, I had no knowledge of any church. My mother was not a churchgoer. My dad was not a churchgoer.
Okay.
And so I knew nothing about the things of God. So what happened when we moved to Nashville and Dad's career took off, and I'm out of the career, so I'm not traveling all the time now. I'm settled down. I'm going to school. I'm trying to get through school.
Yes.
I'm dating this girl who was a churchgoer.
Okay.
And I was not afraid of church. I wasn't afraid of it, so I wasn't worried when they kept asking me to go to church with them. The family was very, very religious.
Okay,
and I had noticed there was a difference about them, and I liked this girl a lot, and so I decided I'd go to church. They kept asking me all the time, so I said, okay, I'd go with her. And it was a very little church, and a very, I might add this, very legalistic church, and something that I had no understanding of at the time. And they were very old-fashioned. Now, what I mean by that is that it was not uncommon for them to jump up, clap their hands, shout, have a big time.
Yes.
You see that in different parts of the world today.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you're probably familiar with what I'm saying.
I am, yes.
And this was a strange thing for me. Now, you got to understand, my first introduction to this, with shifting from first gear to fifth gear immediately, I'm sitting there with my mouth wide open, and I couldn't believe what I was seeing. People jumping up and shouting and getting excited and all that. It was like being at a rock concert.
Yes.
Okay? And I had never seen anything like this. More like the old spirituals. And, of course, in the South, you would see a lot.
And
black influence, the America, different, the Afro-American influence that was on the churches, your Southern Baptists, your Pentecostals, and various churches like that. And so here I am sitting, my first introduction to religion, bang, right off of the bat.
Yes.
So I went out and I told my friends, here's exactly what I said to my buddies. I said, you guys have got to come and visit this place and see this show. It was a show to me.
Yes.
Well, they knew what went on there, so they wouldn't go.
Mm-hmm.
But it intrigued me enough that I wanted to go back.
Okay.
So I went back, and it was during a revival, and I went back several nights.
Yes.
And I remembered as though it were yesterday. The place would only seat probably 75 to 100 people.
Okay.
The pews were against the wall on each side. It only had one aisle down the middle. So if you were unfortunate to wind up sitting against the wall,
yeah,
you couldn't get out without crawling over everybody.
Exactly, yes.
And that was where I wound up sitting. And so here the place is packed. And this particular night, this guy got up and preached, and I called him Rubber Arm. His arm, it just seemed like it was stretched across the audience, and his finger was under my nose all night long. And I must admit, he fascinated the fire out of me, and I was listening for the first time. And he started preaching, and I just got miserable. And a young man in the back named George Heyer Jr.
Mm-hmm.
George Heyer Jr. Was a couple of years ahead of me in school, and I remembered people talking about him, that he was different. He played sports in the school there, and everybody was talking about him and how he'd kneel down and do this thing, this prayer, before he played. And some laughed at him, and others admired him. And so I remember hearing about him. He gets up, and he comes over, and he sits down beside me, and he started praying out loud. God, he said, make Jimmie Snow miserable. Well, my goodness, I turned and looked at him, and I thought, good night, what is he doing?
Yes.
And, I mean, he was as bold as a lion.
Uh-huh.
And the thing was, I was miserable. So finally he looked at me and he said, well, why don't you join me, Jimmie, and let's go down and pray. I thought, wow, now here's my chance to get out of here. I'll follow him out. Now I can, pass everybody. And I'll turn right and I'll get out of here. But when I got to the aisle, I turned left. And I'm saying to myself, what in the world am I doing? And I went down to that altar with him, old-fashioned altar, and I knelt down, and this young man painted me a picture of Jesus dying on the cross and talking to me about him, and it changed my life.
Yes. Okay.
When I got up from that altar, my whole life was different. I wanted to go to church. Problem was, like I stated in the beginning, the old-time church back then was very legalistic, and they started picking on me because my dad sang country music.
Oh, yes.
And they didn't think anybody that sang country music was going to heaven.
That was Satan's
and so
music.
they pick on me.
Yes.
Yeah, they pick on me.
Yeah.
So I got mad after about 6, maybe 7 months. I can't remember exactly how many. Not very long. I refused to go back. And I started doing something, running around with the wrong gang, and then I got back into the music industry. I'm recording now, and I'm making big money and traveling, and I started doing something that I said I would never do because I'd seen my dad do it, was drink. And for 7 years, I became a hopeless alcoholic, and I was in big, big trouble. Now, I managed to hide it from my parents, pretty much. But the problem was I was going downhill.
Yes.
And my life was getting in. I was getting into a lot of trouble.
I
had my own car, and I wound up just really messing up my life really bad. And so I'm dating this girl one night. Now, my career started picking up.
Okay.
And all during this time, I kept feeling, all during this drinking time, working with different people and everything, I kept feeling, unhappy. Unhappy with my career, unhappy with my life. And I just felt that there was something different about me, something that, that I needed to do. And I couldn't run from it. The drunker I'd get, I remember times when I would actually pass out in the car from being so drunk.
Okay.
But yet I could feel this going over and over in my mind that there's something different, almost like another voice talking to me. And I couldn't put my finger on it. And so I had just got back from Hollywood. I went out and did the Lawrence Welk television show.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Well, see, this was in the heyday of his career.
Okay.
He was the biggest thing on NBC.
Yes.
It was all, I mean, every show he did was like 70 million people watching it.
Yeah, exactly.
They didn't have satellites then.
No.
And, it didn't have a lot of cable systems and things.
Exactly.
So, you had 3 networks, and that was about it. And so I got an invitation to do that show as a young singer, and boy, that was a shot in the arm for my career.
Yes, yes.
And when I got back, which was in September of 1957, it just catapulted me.
Mm-hmm.
My records then started selling. I was working now 2 years. Colonel Parker, Elvis Presley's manager,
Yes.
happened to be my manager and my father's manager, and they were in business together. And so during that time, I worked a lot of shows with Elvis.
Okay.
And a lot of stars. Oh, you name them.
Yeah.
Marty Robbins. You go down the list.
Exactly.
Bill Haley and the Comets. We were getting involved. What then was called rockabilly.
Yes, yes.
Because most of these people, including Elvis, were country and music singers.
Yeah, because there was no such thing as rockabilly or rock and roll.
No, there was no such thing. It didn't come along until later. And so they coined it because of Elvis's style. And Bill Haley, who was a country singer working nightclubs in Pennsylvania, they coined it rockabilly because he came out with some things as well. And then that's when all the movies, James Dean movies, Marlon Brando movies were different.
Yes.
And when they came out, it all changed everything.
Okay.
And so as a result of that, I began to start recording because as a young man, I wanted to, spread my wings. So I started doing a few more rockabilly things as well. Mm-hmm. And I traveled. I worked with Bill Haley and the Comets, did a tour with them. And
Buddy Holly and all them.
Buddy Holly, yeah.
Yes, yes.
And Tommy Sands just happened to be on, the actor, singer, which was a teen idol back in that day. And they all started coming out of the woodwork.
Okay.
You name them,
and,
everybody.
Yeah.
And I started hitting in that direction myself.
Mm-hmm.
My dad didn't like it, but, he didn't know enough about it at the time
yes,
to really
exactly.
get angry with me. So it was a slow process for me. And I got a call from Elvis in 1957 in December.
Yeah.
He wanted me to come over to Graceland and hang out with him for a couple of weeks. So I agreed.
Okay.
And it was, we were friends, and so as a result, there was no big deal for me to think about that. And so we was at Graceland at the time, and he would rent the roller skating rink for roller skating for 25 or 30 of us.
Oh, yes.
People that hung out with him, and we'd roller skate all night. He'd pay everybody that worked there, give them double bonuses and everything, and we'd roller skate all night, go home and sleep all.
Yes.
Sleep all day practically, and then go to the movie theater, do different things like that all night. And
was that his Tennessee Mafia days, or?
Yeah, it was. And I don't remember a lot of them, but
no.
It was while I was there that I really made the decision that I was going to go into the ministry.
Okay.
And just prelude, what had happened was just prior to going to his house, in November, I had been dating this girl, and she wanted to go to the drive-in theater. And I thought, well, this will be great. I can go to the drive-in and park on the back row and make my move. I happened to turn to her, and I said, what do you want to go see? And she looked at me, and she said, the Ten Commandments. I thought, the Ten Commandments? The one with Charlton Heston.
Yeah.
The Ten Commandments? You got to be kidding. I don't want to see the Ten Commandments and try to, move on this girl. But I parked on the back row, and I thought, well, I'm not going to worry about it. I'm going to do it. It's just a movie. But I want you to know that movie got to me that night big time.
Okay.
I took her home and dropped her off, and I went home. I went out in the front yard and knelt beside the tree, Dad's house. That tree is still there to this day. Started talking to God. It's out in Madison.
Oh, yes, Madison,
Same
yes.
house,
okay.
Same house that my
the old
father,
ranch.
The one he died in, yeah.
Yeah.
One of the, actually, there's my dad's sister's grandson owns that house now. That's the same house. I knelt beside that tree, and when you go out the front yard, that tree's still there.
Okay.
And I started talking to God. And that's when God called me that I was going to be in the ministry, that I'd be preaching the rest of my life.
Yes, and you have
60 years
been.
ago.
60 years ago,
Yep. 60 years ago, January 3rd of this year.
Oh, congratulations.
Full time. And November the 27th, 1957, I rededicated my life back to God. And then I got married, and then I started traveling, and I was still in show business. I remember working in Kingston, as a matter of fact.
Did you? Yes.
I remember working all over Ontario. Worked the last show that I worked, by the way, was in Ontario.
Oh, yes. Whereabouts?
Guess where? It was in Toronto.
Oh, yes.
At the old Casino Theater.
Okay.
That Dad used to work at every year. I worked that Casino Theater there. It's been torn down since.
Okay,
out there on Yonge Street, I believe. Young and Yonge Street, I believe, right in that area. I'm taking that from memory.
Okay.
And I actually told the people on the stage that night, I said, this will be my last show. I'm going home, and I'm quitting the entertainment business and going to the ministry, which is exactly what I did. And I went into full-time ministry in the fall of 1958.
I would like to know your opinion on the modernization of our beloved country music.
I'm old school.
Yes, as I am.
And my dad was there is some things that I like, but all in all, I don't like the attitude
of
a lot of the new country singers. I think that they have become more Hollywood, more loose in their conversation. They don't have the same kind of values. They don't have the same family feel. I'm not saying that's true of all of them.
No, but a lot of them.
There's still a few of most of them. There's still a few of them. They're making money like you would not believe. I don't think they appreciate their audiences like the old school. They have people that are hired that make them look good to those audiences out there. And there's a few things that some of them do. Keith Urban, the Australian, I think that he might have his head on pretty good, although I'm glad to know that he had gone in, got his life straightened out with these things. There are a few of them that have religious values. Connie Smith, for instance, she's still doing good. Yeah. She's up in the years, and Connie was one of my old church members.
Okay.
And she's a very, very fine person, and she still, holds true to her background.
Exactly.
Marty Stewart does. I think some of the old bluegrass, they can't shake it off. Bluegrass is bluegrass.
But if I may say, the Lord and Connie also saved Marty in a lot of ways.
Yes, that is exactly right. Yes, You're exactly right. I've known Marty a long time. He sang at my dad's funeral and played my dad's guitar.
Okay.
And and I've talked with Marty many times, and I've had influence, so to speak, on different ones. Of course, Johnny Cash was a member of my church for a number of years.
Okay.
I could go on and on. I could name a lot of them. Chris Christopherson went to the altar, and at my church, you go on YouTube. People that have the ability can actually go on YouTube and look up the story of Why Me, Lord.
Okay.
And he tells about going to my church and what it did to him and how it caused him to write that song, which, by the way, was his only gold record. But basically, to make it quick, what happened in old time, we didn't have the ability to do back then what we can do today. You can actually tune a person's voice today.
Your father came along, and what he sounded like.
That's right.
They didn't have computers to modernize you.
Right, they didn't.
No.
Me, all of us. We all had to be what we were. You had to sing it 20 or 30 times.
Yeah.
One mistake, you had to do it over again.
Exactly.
Because it was a plaque.
That's right.
Not a tape.
That's right.
And it was different. You could tune things. And back then, it was more of a style. You knew Johnny Cash when you heard. You knew my dad when you heard.
Yes.
You knew Marty Robbins when you heard.
Exactly.
So back then, it was the voice. Then it was the song. Then it was the arrangement. Now, today, it's different. Today, it's the song, the arrangement, and the voice. You don't know who anybody is. DJs don't even tell you who they are anymore.
No, exactly.
You just listen until you know their music. You don't know who they are.
No, you don't.
And it's all noise more than anything else in a lot of.
Sure.
That's why people get so shocked when they hear somebody in person. They say, "Well, boy, they sure don't sound like they do on their records."
That's right. Yeah, for sure.
So many of them are not great singers anymore. anymore. And it's just totally different. And I'm not saying that's true of everybody.
No, but a lot of them it is.
Majority thing. I like the old style.
Exactly. And that's the way it should be. We're missing a lot of personality and a lot of soul in today's music. So I want to thank you for being on the show today, Reverend Snow, and you have a blessed day.
And let me say thanks to your audience that are listening with us.
Yes.
I appreciate that very much. They're very important people, and they always have been in my entire life.
Well, thank you.
Yes, thank you for having me on today. I appreciate that.
Well, it's been a pleasure.